All right. Well, good morning. We are excited to be here with you today. I know we have several online because there's like 111 people attending this session, but most, of course, will watch the recording or be with us on Zoom this morning. So for those that are on Zoom, Dr. Pranger is managing the Zoom for us, and there is a Q&A where you can ask questions and things like that. So as you ask those, we'll answer them at the end or follow up after the session. If you all have questions that are here live, feel free to interact with us along the way. I always do try to leave room for discussion and questions at the end. We appreciate the Florida folks being here and bringing us the hot, humid weather into this room today because I think it's like 98 degrees, so very hot and humid. So my name is Dr. Treg Hopkins, and this is Dr. Matthew Prenger, and we work with a company called Connectable and do a lot with AI and how to make decisions. In fact, it leads our business. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. And it is AI ready leadership and how you can utilize some of the skills and tools that we know about to assist you with strategic decision making in this artificial intelligence. We go through different ages, right? And we've seen things like the information age. And back in the 90s and the early 2000s, we saw that information age was really important to the way that we do business and the way that we make decisions. Things started to kind of change in that world as well. We saw things that were really manual processes, like filling out a spreadsheet, suddenly became digitized. And now those are no longer giant workbooks that you have to turn the page and use liquid paper to change it. You don't have to write out the formulas by hand and use calculators and things anymore. Of course, then it all started developing on the computer. And then we entered into the dot-com era and we started embracing the internet. I actually have a newspaper article from 1999 where it says, "The internet, a passing fad." And that was the headline. Little did they know that the newspaper was the passing fad, that the internet would soon take those headlines away from them. But things change over time, and it changes the way that we think, the way that we do business, and the way that we make our decisions. And with the internet, a lot of people just have a lot more information at their hands. So suddenly they could fact check, right? They could look into things more. And artificial intelligence is actually kind of complicating that. In fact, sometimes it's really hard to tell if something's real or not, and it's confusing. So we'll talk a little bit about why it's important to use quality data in the strategic decision-making process and how AI can assist you in doing that. But we're not up here to act like it's the greatest thing and that there are no concerns. We're very aware of lots of concerns from environmental to bias. So feel free to interact with those along the way as well. So it's a practical framework for adult education program directors that are ready to lead with confidence in AI-enhanced future. AI is no longer like a future concept, though, right? We know that it's here already, and being that it's here and we're using it, I thought it would be a good idea just to kind of raise your hand if you are using AI. Everyone has, right? And everyone has, whether you realize it or not. In fact, you may be using it a lot more than you realize. So little things that we don't necessarily attribute to AI that is artificial intelligence would be like if you are typing something out and this little thing pops up called spell check or grammar check, that is artificial intelligence, right? It's able to use analytics in the program and its database and report back that I think you mean this, or I think you mean that. I don't think that's how you spell it. So we use it in lots of little ways. However, today it's changed, right? And it's gotten more advanced. And that's a lot of what we'll be talking about. We do know, though, if we don't embrace it now, if we're not keeping up with where things are from that technological standpoint, that we do risk falling behind. And we also want to prepare our students with that new technology. So we want you to be able to make decisions that help craft that curriculum for those students because they need that skill as well. Now, it's been a little bit since I've been in the classroom on the adult ed side, but I work with the students every day. I work with the programs every day. And what I find is that a lot of times technology is a major gap for the student. They aren't used to it. they don't necessarily have the money to go buy the new iMac or the new iPhone, right? They don't have the devices that are the most up to date. Sometimes, and I was actually speaking with a student that won a Chromebook that we give away at every conference. She won, and she said, I prayed about this right before you drew. And she said, I needed this. I'm using a lint to her laptop from the program. So she was just borrowing a laptop to go to school. And she's like, and this gives me my own. And it just meant everything to her. And I think that's often our students' story. So to think that they're aware of artificial intelligence is probably a given. But to think that they know how to use it and use it to their advantage to assist them to overcome their gaps, probably not. So we want your programs not only to use it to be able to make decisions that help you, but also to integrate it into your programs in a way that teaches them how to help themselves with that technology and to be career ready then, because most businesses are using artificial intelligence every day. And that's probably only increasing. So we want those students to have that same skill set that we want you to have. Now, when we are preparing for an influx of new technology or a new program, we have decisions that we make as leaders. We get to decide, are we going to be reactive or are we going to be strategic? Are we going to be isolated or connected? Well, it's that shift from oversight to intentional tech forward leadership that we're talking to you about today. That you've got to be intentional about it, that you need to adopt things that help you embrace that new technology. So, reactive versus strategic. That's a hard place to be for a leader sometimes because I don't know about you, but like time moves very quickly, and it seems like every hour that goes by, new tasks are added to your list. And it's hard to juggle. And sometimes you don't even know what you should prioritize first. And then something new pops up, and you weren't prepared for that. It wasn't on your agenda for the day. That means that we enter that phase of being reactive. We also see that a lot of people in our community already feel isolated, and that artificial intelligence, the way that we interact with our students, the systems that we use can actually help connect them. That's what I like about the conferences, right? Is that we get connected with people and we get to talk to them and see them. Sometimes, this happened to me yesterday, I had a state director that I've met probably 13 times. We've probably spent about 60 hours together during those 13 times, but this was the first time we met in person. Prior to that, it was just over Zoom, and that's the only way that we had ever interacted. But yesterday was different. We got to see each other. What was unique about it is that because of the technology, we didn't feel like it was the first time. We were walking by in the hallway and just recognized each other. We're like, oh, hey, And after we talked for a little while, she's like, I don't think we've ever met in person. And I had to reel back and think, no, I guess we haven't, you know? So the technology really sometimes does a good job at fulfilling that connectedness. And because our students are already feeling isolated, we want to use it to connect them as well, to help build their network. So those are some of the things that I want to start this morning thinking about. I thought that we could talk about times like that, where we've had to be more reactive during a program challenge than maybe we would like to be, that we wish that we would have been prepared for what just happened. And then also a time where maybe you felt isolated to try and solve a problem all on your own, kind of without help. So either question you can answer. You don't have to answer both. So do we have anybody that immediately thinks of a time where they had to be more reactive during a program challenge, that they didn't have time to prepare, but they had to do something right then and there? Yeah.
I think sometimes
Just for the Zoom people, I'll bring the mic around.
Thank
you.
Sometimes just when I'm working with math students and math is not my major. So then I have to basically look up how to do a certain problem. And sometimes the problem is like 1 or 2 pages long. But I just find that I can quickly, figure it out. And I don't necessarily have to quickly do it because we're all about learning, right? So learning takes time. And I remember back in 2009, I was out to dinner with some friends, and these friends were from Rhode Island area, Boston area. And I didn't know them very well because I knew them through somebody else. And they whipped out their Apple phone, and this was 2009, and we just started talking about baseball. And they were looking up some things with baseball, and I'm thinking to myself, this is incredible, right? So I'm like, why can't we use it for math? So I was feeling like, man, I feel a little isolated yet. I thought I gotta quickly get this in, and I have to learn it so that I can show the first level.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent. I think that's a big takeaway there is that learning is a process and it does take time, but use your resources, right?
Yeah, and the
And
balance
take
is-
your time with that.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got
Any other examples of either feeling isolated where you had to solve a problem all on your own or reactive giving a challenge? We're adult ed people, so I'm sure your wife has got no challenge.
So let's say during a weekly Tuesday math workshop where everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
You have your student walk in, or then you have another instructor that has a technical difficulty. So
Yes.
so you use what you can in the few minutes that you have before you get started to kind of try to find solutions for each of those.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know it was the very start of the term last fall in August. Power School and Blackboard had a server outage, and it was their first day of class. So programs were unable to access. We signed 23 new programs that day. Just because of their frustration with their system not working. And I thought, well, those are 23 programs that gave up from one issue, right? From one thing that went down or went wrong. And of course, that could happen to us too. That's not like a unique thing in the world of information technology. But think how often that happens to our student, that one thing goes wrong and they feel like giving up.
Mine's a bit of a silly story, but I work in corrections and I had a student who approached me with a problem he was doing on his tablet, a math problem. And he said, oh, it's about like the heat melting point of aluminum, right? And I'm sorry, I don't know what the formula is for this. And he said, well, just use that chat, use that chat.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, but I need the exact wording of this problem that you're solving. And I said, you write it down and then you bring it back to me. And so he wrote it down and I said, okay, I'm gonna do it right now and I'll get it back to you. And because it's correct, they're very, very smart. I didn't have exactly what this.
Information for.
I did all the chat, and it gave me this very long, I had no idea what it was, I didn't know what kind of map it was, it was beyond me. And it's actually at the end, it said, this must be a theoretical question because it is beyond the melting point of aluminum. And I'm like, no, we're not gonna talk about this, you're not going to give me answer to this. So it was a nice thing. Give me that. It was good. It was.
Sometimes it can really be a reveal, right? But that's great to know that, you use the resource. It's interesting that the inmate knew of the resource, but didn't have access to it, but knew about it, right? And knew enough to tell you, hey, you can find out the answer on it, but she knew enough. She said, I need the exact wording. Prompts are important, right? So we're going to talk about that as well, because it is only as good as the data that we provide to it. So having good critical data is important. So today we're going to talk about AI readiness framework and just kind of that structured approach that's responsible for AI adoption in your program, because we do need to think about ethics and we do need to think about appropriate use. We're going to talk about forecasting and planning, how you can use data to predict enrollment, graduations, and even workforce entry points, and professional development. I'll both show you kind of like how our system helps you track professional development, how you might start thinking about how to track it for your programs as well, and be able to teach the staff that growth kind of automatically. Like once they get into that growth mindset of you are always learning, but you're always adapting at the same time, that's where AI can really benefit you. And then learner engagement and the learning management system. So building and deploying ready to teach curriculum at scale and how AI can make you super responsive. And we'll talk about that as well as the ethical integration. So some of that real world case studies that we found as well. So the readiness framework itself, before you use any new tool, you kind of have to know what you expect to get out of it, right? And how to approach it. And the approach is really important because I think sometimes people like dive in and then we have something called over reliance on artificial intelligence. And I think that's a real fear as an educator for our students is that we adapt this new technology to meet their needs, but then they abuse the technology that was adapted for their needs, and suddenly their needs have grown because they don't know exactly what to do or how to even get started. I think that looking back on it, it's the reason why in the early stages of my educational career, we weren't allowed to use a calculator in math, right? We didn't get to use a calculator until we approached Algebra 1. That's when it was appropriate to use it. And then it was still limited, and we were taught how to use it. And I think that today, maybe that technology's changed. I've seen some of the math in middle school and high school, and it certainly looks different than when I took math. And I was talking to a friend about this who teaches that age group, and they said, well, it is new math. It's like, how can math be new? Right? Like 2 plus 2. It doesn't make any sense. And he said, yeah, because linear math. This is 4-dimensional. It's quantum. It's for the computer age. It's not for a linear basic thinking. That's what calculators are for. And I thought, we'd never be allowed to use a calculator for basic, simple linear math. It makes sense. But now they're using computers, right, to conduct those math problems. So it seems more confusing to me. But for them, it's actually just more complex. And that was kind of important from my understanding to realize I think they're going about it the wrong way. And then to realize I'm just outdated in what I know about math. So we have to have that framework to be able to assess it and to think, well, what's our capacity? If my capacity is only linear math and I sit down and try to do lattice, I am lost. I don't know how to do it. I've never been taught it, and I would have to learn it. And maybe there are programs that could help teach it to me. I'm sure I would be capable of it. So my capacity is there, even if my skill set's not. But is it a priority for me? It's really not. I don't anticipate teaching that level of math. I do teach quantitative research statistics at the 800 level. That's interesting to me. We still have to use lots of database and spreadsheets. That's more in my world. They wouldn't know that math. So what we know and what we understand, we have to set priorities for it. That's my priority. So my priority for Lattice, really low. Implement responsibly then. So again, we have to think about how we use the tools, when we're going to use them, and how to teach them to use the tools in the appropriate manner and not to just rely on it or think that they can rely on it as the option. So we do this at every stage of the journey, from the introduction point to building that foundation to the point of expertise. We're still talking about the appropriate ways of using it. So that's our framework. We first start with vision. We've got to define clearly what are the goals for this technology. What do we hope to accomplish with artificial intelligence in our program? It could be simple. Maybe it's just analyzing attendance and seeing, that when the weather is rainy, we don't have so many people show up. Have you ever noticed that? I know that was one of the things that we would joke about in my program often is, well, there's a cloud in the sky, so orientation will be light today. It just seems like there's fair weather friends out there. But we could use artificial intelligence to kind of analyze, what are the chances of this Thursday every year having rain or not? Is it the best day for us to host an orientation? We could use it to analyze what evening of the week is best for new students to come in and explore your program. Or when are we most successful in collecting those IDs that we need? And then what manners? Is it through a text message? Is it through logging into a system? Is it showing up in person? Where are we at in that process? So defining the clear goals of what we want to accomplish is the first step. And we've learned this in other programs. The first step is admitting you have a problem, right? So here we're kind of identifying the problem. That's what the vision is. A goal should be attached kind of to a problem statement. This is what we hope to do, or this is where we hope to be. What are we going to do about it? We probably don't know yet, but we know it's a problem. So the vision. And then ethics, we've got to make sure that we do it the correct way, that we're not violating data privacy or anything like that, that we understand what it means to be transparent but secure, because those things are often in conflict with each other. It's real easy maybe for you to talk to a parent rather than the student. Sometimes, at least in my world, parents have showed up and they're like, I'm here to enroll my daughter. Well, you can't. She is 27 years old. I appreciate the thought, but it's not going to happen today, right? The best thing I can do is give you information and help you have the discussion with her. Sometimes we can use AI to help us craft those discussions to say, okay, this is the problem. The problem is the parents advocating for the daughter, the adult child, but the child's not here. The adult student isn't in front of us. What information could we give this person? So by talking to the mother and understanding, be as honest as you can be about where the student's been and what they've been going through. And then we can use that information to craft a conversation. If the person's had dependency issues and they dropped out because they had gotten pregnant, and we know the circumstances or the problems that they face, and we're upfront about it in the conversations with artificial intelligence, it can actually create some very good messaging that doesn't make the person feel bad about where they've been, but encourages them to move on into the future. And then we do have to have capacity to do all of that. It may sound like, well, that's going to take a lot of time. And I don't have time. I'm already wearing 9 different hats, right? So capacity, we've got to make sure that our staff has that readiness and that culture of continuous learning as well. Everyone on your team, it can be volunteers, our peer tutors, it can be the data person, it can be the program directors, every faculty member. We want to train them as well. So offering that professional development, discussing with them how they can use artificial intelligence to assist them in understanding trends, data, conversations, email responses, text messages, and the list can go on. Because what we're really concerned about is the impact itself. So these are the of AI ready leadership, is that you think through each of these items in every situation, and that you think about it holistically as well with your teams. And you think, are we ready? Do we have the capacity? Have I provided the conversation? And making sure that we're ready for that impact. In order to measure the impact, we have to look at the outcome so that we can start bragging about, you did it. You figured out that that was a theoretical math problem that should not be shared. You figured out a difficult conversation that you needed to have with an underperforming teacher. You figured out, the fact that weather impacts attendance. These are the things that we figure out, and then we can do something about it. So weather impacting attendance, I send out a text message. There's actually a template for it in our system that says, looks rainy today. Best stay inside right here at our school. Reminding them that it's dry here. Your roof may be leaking. Ours is too. but we've got buckets, so come on in anyway, right? I don't know if you've ever had to teach in a church basement, but I've had the buckets before. So We also, along this line then with the 4 pillars, we created something called AI mindsets to kind of gauge where you and your team are in terms of adopting artificial intelligence. We have the optimizer. This is somebody that is in it to streamline efficiency. So they're using tools that actually help just improve efficiency itself. The connector. This is somebody that's customizing and engaging for student success. That's the person saying, what text message do I send out in this situation? Or how do I reach, or what event do I need to hold? Or how do I create curriculum that follows that growth? The innovator. This person's already probably on your team. They have all the gadgets. They use all the different weird AI things. They're always talking about something new. They're the early adopters. They don't always succeed. In fact, oftentimes the ideas fail or the technology is not as ready as maybe it seems, but they're exploring it. And they're important on your team because they're informing you of what the possibilities are and what's out there. Sometimes we see that in our students as well. They're willing to take risks and try new things and experience the challenges, even if they're not really succeeding. And sometimes it gets in their way and it causes them to stumble, and they're more reliant. They'll spend 25 minutes trying to get it to work on the computer when it would have taken 2 minutes to solve it on paper. That's the innovator. And then we have the experimenter. These are just people that are testing before trusting the AI tools. I call these the people that are very cautious about it, but they know it's here. So they're interested in it, but with real caution. So they want to make sure that it's going to work. They're going to slowly just kind of tiptoe into AI. There are some safer ways of using it. So maybe spell check something they're comfortable with, but maybe using ChatGPT isn't, right? So they're kind of in between. And then the collaborator, this person, they understand a product really well or a use really well, and they're helping other people use it too. They're sharing their experience with AI. Now, we change our mind. Sometimes it's really hard though, right? We've approached things and we think we know, and we know what we believe. So it's hard to kind of entertain maybe another person's idea. But the reality is that with the right information, our minds can shift. Our minds do change with the right information and changing experiences. We might go through different mindsets. So today, you might be somebody that's an experimenter, trying things that other people have tried, testing it out, seeing if it'll work for you. And if it does, you may then become the collaborator. Because just as somebody told you about it, you might tell somebody else about it. So we actually have a assessment tool that we created. It is part of a research project. And we have a new website. Part of being a nonprofit, we had to switch from .com to .org. So when you go to this QR code, it'll ask you if you want to go to the new website, and say you don't, because this is on the .com. Because we're in the middle of collecting the research. We didn't change that yet. So don't go to the new site if that pops up. But this is a link that you can share with everyone on your team, anybody in adult ed. There are some demographic questions because it is a research study, that it'll pop up and ask you, like, how many years have you been in adult ed, and have you been an adult ed student? But the other questions that it's asking are actually helping you determine which one of those categories you fall into. What is your AI mindset? And what's the mindset of those on your team? So feel free to use that tool anywhere you go, but it's certainly one that it's pretty eye-opening. When you get the results of it, it'll actually tell you more about each category as well. So you'll learn more about who you are and how you feel about artificial intelligence. And again, it's kind of weird because it'll pop up on your phone and say, do you want to go to the new site? Just say you do not. Decline that. What's that?
But you gotta go to the new. No, it says combined.
It'll say, yeah,
It'll start in the second and then.
right there. Oh, yours is not popping up. There you go. Just if you're on your phone for some reason, to close it, you swipe down.
Oh, it came back.
I can look it up on AI if you need.
You may have to go to that site on your computer. I'm not sure why it's not.
Oh,
yeah.
there it is. No. Just try to spell virgin. Just once
Again, and maybe turn it to landscape, like turn it to the side and see if, you have to open the side again.
I'm doing the same thing.
Is it, try to turn it to the side, see if that'll help.
Well, I can bring it in.
I'll also post this link, onto on the Whova.
I've got the big number.
Yeah.
Well, no, I can get rid of that. And I
Well, I'll post that link too, so you can actually, some of you are succeeding, especially like if it's an iPhone, others, not so much, so. We'll post that link for you as well. What's that?
should use an Android.
Yes, then it wouldn't happen. All right, so that's gonna give you some ideas of kind of how you're adopting this new technology and what programs even specifically might benefit you to check out based on your mindset. So we actually list some sites and programs when you figure out your mindset of what it might be. So smarter forecasting starts with better data. We're looking at a lot of different information throughout the day. Connectable, we have on-demand reporting so that you get kind of a real-time view of your metrics. I don't know, and I apologize if you're a Connectable member and you already know this or are used to the system. But if you're not, most states are using like a state data reporting or a federal data reporting system, something like LACES or TOPS Enterprise. So we work on the front end of that. Those are partners of ours. We also work with 25 other state systems as well as the District of Columbia. In the front of it, and sometimes I know if you're using one of those systems, running the reports can be a little bit convoluted and it can be confusing, and sometimes the data is not actually accurate. So our system works on the front end to clean that up for you and make it a little bit easier to see. So it's on-demand reporting. As soon as you click it, it duplicate checks, for example, to make sure that there's not a student that started 8 years ago and is in LACES and now here they are today, because that happens. So it helps improve those numbers. It is only as good as the data you provide, right? So we want to provide cleaner data and use artificial intelligence to help us do that. Because that real-time view, as soon as a student says they're interested, our system creates a dashboard for the student. And that way you have a communication line with them. You can send them text messages, emails, and things like that to help them take the next steps. That planning is driven by insight. So it's telling you where they are in the process and suggesting messages to send them. Sometimes those messages are even automated, recognizing the moves the student's making. It starts to shift so they make progress in through that process. You want to be able to monitor those enrollment pools, and that way you can predict capacity needs. If you have a program that's struggling, I had one that I was talking to on the first day of the conference here, and she told me a story. I was actually in her session, and I talked to her after, and she told me a story where this happened to her. She was needing a minimum number of students for the program to go through because of a grant. She originally needed 10, and she had 7. And they came back, and the grantor told her, like, well, if you get 8, you can run it. And she's like, okay. So she tried all week to get another student. And then she said, I got one. I finally got to 8 on that Friday, so we could start the class Monday. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And she goes, yeah, now I know how to run the CNC machine. She enrolled herself into it and become the 8th student. So it helps to recognize capacity and enrollment pools and be able to predict that, to work off interest lists, to go back to people that maybe had a similar skill set or expressed interest in the past and it wasn't the right time and they fell off. So using those contact management strategies, not losing those leads, but also building that network. going and reaching out to graduates of the program and saying, someone just like you, remember when you were in our program? Somebody just like you could benefit. Who do you know that needs to change today? And that could help too. So it's about predicting that capacity and then using that on-demand reporting so that you can reach out to the people that are in that network. You also can track graduation timelines, anticipate when those cohorts are going to complete. And what that allows you to do is show up to the employers, to start talking to them and saying, hey, in 30 days, I've got 3 great welders coming on board. And one of them could be yours. Play your cards right, right? It puts you in a position of power, not just to help that student get a job, but to connect with your employers kind of for the long term to build those relationships, which I think is really important. Whenever I first came to the community that I worked in, that was always my goal. I would stop at 3 employers every day when I first got there, and I joined the Chamber of Commerce right away. I got really involved because I knew that those employers, one, have people that apply, and those people that apply are not always qualified. And I knew that then they were a pipeline into my program. And I also knew that when I had a student that needed a job that was flexible or needed to work around school schedule, that those employers were a pipeline to that as well. So I think that our relationship that we build with employers is really, really important. So I put them into the database too, because I want them to be informed. I want to know the jobs that they're posting. I want to know the trends. I want to talk to them about how many hires do you expect next year? And then let's work together to make that happen. How can I build a program that if you require this skill set, we make sure everybody has that skill set? And we can design things that are branded and customized around that person or that employer. So that way they see, wow, that's just like me. I tell a story of a mistake I made one time. It's happened once, so you may want to write this down. But I remember it clearly because I was really excited. I spent about $100,000 on an investment of receiving a forklift simulator for our program. And it was so cool. And it had virtual reality with the Oculus headsets and everything. You literally sat on it. It was all set up. It felt so real. It made me dizzy. And I was really excited. So I went and with the employer roundtable I had created and the HR roundtable, I invited everybody I knew in the community, all the employers to come in to test it out, to see it. And they did, they showed up and it was really fun and cool. And this was built on a Yale system, which is a forklift manufacturer. And there's a competitor to them called Crown Equipment. And Crown is the biggest employer in that town and came in and saw the forklift simulator that wasn't theirs, was their competitor's branded. Yeah, we could have had it purchased as a Crown forklift, but it's those things that data can tell you when you really know who your employers are. You don't make those mistakes, you know how to communicate through them. So we start to see the importance of this.
Happens. I was gonna say, finish the story.
I quit the job and started Connectable. That is the real story, but no, they're still a great employer. In fact, Indiana recognized them as their employer of the year. Crown Equipment received an award last year and again this year. They're a strong advocate for adult ed. They've hired our students. They hired Matthew's students. So they're wonderful. They understand, right? But it's important to know. And I'm just sharing with you the reality of the decisions that we make. AI wasn't there. I didn't have a data system. It was one of the driving factors that started Connectable was I was frustrated the fact that we didn't have systems and I didn't know that information and I didn't have the databases. I had a spreadsheet. I didn't have anything that could tell me. A lot of it was still business cards and it was just 6 years ago. And I had a Rolodex and I'm just going through and having my assistants email these people.
Okay.
It was different.
Well, not to get all central, but does Connectables do that?
Yes.
That information?
Yeah. Employer tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have Connectables, but I didn't know it did that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just baffled me.
Yeah.
My question is, what kind of prompts would you ask?
Yes.
This question, I'm old, apparently.
No, I think we're all in the same situation because it's not that we're old. It's that the technology and the thinking is new, right? That's why we're here, is because it's new technology, it's a new way of thinking. The prompts are important. We can actually,
Craig, if I may,
yeah,
just in the last couple of years of being able to like talk about AI in these conferences, I was surprised whenever he asked like how many of you have used it, and everybody pretty much raised their hand. That wasn't the case last year.
for Dallas,
2 years ago, it's like we had to raise our own.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. And
Just to show how quickly.
when we were presenting in Seattle was the first year at CoWave that we had AI. And we had 100, I don't know if any of you were in our room, we had 132 people in person. We had over 200 people in the session because it was such a new topic. So, when will we stop talking about it? I don't know, but people are still needing to figure it out. So don't feel like it's an age thing, because it's not. It's that it's evolving and it moves very quickly. So some of the prompts, for example, is in the report. So like in the system, some of it's doing it for you. It's making suggestions, it's highlighting templates and things that you can send out text messages and emails, and it's understanding the data and saying like, here's an opportunity for program growth. Here's where your people are getting stuck. But you can do it even more simple. If you're on a spreadsheet, upload the spreadsheet into ChatGPT. Do it on a secure account. So don't do it on the free version. Don't do it where you're sharing it with other businesses or with them even. We opt out, like at Connectable, like we check the box that says like even in the workspace, ChatGPT doesn't get to use that to train their models. Upload your spreadsheet in that secure way and then say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm going for this grant. Here's the data, here's the requirements, here's the application. A friend of ours from church, he wanted to see if we could use AI to help him become a Kentucky colonel. That's their like highest award in Kentucky. It's like kind of an important thing. So I did. I uploaded the application, I uploaded his resume and a few of his publications and said, make this match to highlight that he's a good candidate. We got notified about 3 months later that he was a finalist, and 6 months later that he was being awarded Kentucky Colonel. He lives in Indiana. We defined the objectives, but he was like risen so high to the top that he literally is a Kentucky Colonel now. So, it's using the data, but sharing it with artificial intelligence, saying, hey, here are my students, here's where they're at, here's the percentage that they've completed, and here were their goals. What's their timelines? When are they going to be done? And let it learn your information so it predicts that. And I'll show you kind of how we do it as well as we move on. But generating those reports on demand, it eliminates that IT bottleneck so that you're not doing it manually. Which we also think is kind of an insecure way of doing it if you're having to use spreadsheets or Google Forms and things like that. So here's an example of what that looks like. So in the filters options, you've got all of the data here, whether they're a student or an employer, if you're using the employer portal. And then you can filter by anything, save those filters. So if you want a report that's like graduation predicted, you can run that, look at the progress. It already knows how many modules they have left, where they have their test scores, what the predictors are, and then it's using that backend algorithm to figure out, here's who's on the report. Here's who's coming up in the date range, like in the next 90 days or 30 days, whatever it looks like. So that's just an example. And then we also highlight it on the dashboard as well. So you can see like how many registrations there are, how many contacts you have, where are they at, which programs. We've got 7 in adult basic ed, and we've got 2 in career, just as an example. And then we can see the courses that they're taking. So we've got 4 students in career services. We've got decimals and fractions percent, somebody low level math that's working on that. And this is interactive, so you can click on it and get in and see more. So the student has the same access, right? The student can see where they're at, where they're doing performance-wise. This is set up numerically. Utah, anybody from Utah, you use GPA, so yours are grade points. Indiana's just completions. Did they do it? Did they not do it? So this can vary, but the idea is that the student has to be able to see their data too, and their performance, and their success, and the percent and completion. Sometimes it's visual. So this is like the instructor view, but the student can see the progress too. You want to be able to see how many students do we have? What's their progress right now? This course is just getting started. So they're 13.89%. Well, one person's already completed. So you start to understand where are they in your program and how close are we to getting the other three through. Then we can take a closer look. We see, okay, this person's gotten 3 courses. One of them's completed. They've taken AI Work in Life. That was a grant-funded program out of the state of Alabama. They still have digital literacy and mechatronics to complete. 33% of their goals are achieved. So we know where they're at. We know how many hours they've put in. It helps you begin to predict where are we and where are we going and how are we going to get there. And we want you to see it. We want the students to know where they're at. And you can do this, like I said, you could do this on an Excel sheet. It doesn't take much technology to do it. It may take more time, but you can run a pivot table and find out the same information. Matthew loves pivot tables. Yeah.
So back to the dashboard, it could, because you mentioned the education versus employment
Yes.
portal. Can you have both on the same dashboard?
Oh, yes,
Okay, so
you
make
can.
it- okay.
The dashboards, like they're customizable.
Okay.
So like these, you can move around and you can change what's on there. You have to enable features like, it's under the role management. So if you just go to, no, if you go to settings and then just click role management, you can toggle on or off what you want and then customize dashboard. And yeah.
So I just have a question. So when you first get this, guessing you have to connect it to the system that the college or the program uses. So
Yep.
you'll connect it to existing apps and existing infrastructure. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so the idea of it is that we should all be able to connect the information and the programs we use to just one place. Depending on where you're at, like I said, like LACIS was an example, but like in Indiana, like she uses a program called Inters, which is integrated with Connectable. You may use something like Essential Ed or Burlington English partners of Connectable. So like different programs, and we have to map them. And sometimes you have to go, if we've not already partnered, they have to write code or provide us an API. It's a way of integrating the systems. But for most states like Florida, you're already in the system. It takes about a week. We just turn it on and then it starts working. Okay. Plan classes around that real world workforce demand. That's so important that you are working with the employers. Forecasting isn't just about enrollment. In fact, it's about timing. And that's where we're trying to predict and make these strategic decisions about what are you offering, when are you offering it, where are you offering it. Up in Iowa, do I have any Iowans in here? No? I don't know your states. I only know Florida and Indiana and Wisconsin. But okay, so in Iowa, what we found were a lot of students were in one community college district and lived there while working in another. In fact, the first Iowa program that I walked into was at Scott Community College, and a wonderful director named Scott was sitting there in Scott Community College. And I was asking him, like, well, what are some great places here in Davenport to eat? And he goes, I don't know. I live in Dubuque. And I'm like, you drive an hour and a half from Dubuque past 2 adult ed programs to work here in Scott. And that's the reality in many rural communities. And it was the reality for many Iowans. So we created a career navigator because what we realized were students were the same way. So just because they lived somewhere, that's who they were being marketed to. They were using that zip code. But when we started looking at workforce demand, we realized they need to focus on where they are working, because when they get off work, they need to go to class. So the CNA program, we switched the locations up because we realized where they were working. So many of them were an hour from home, but 10 minutes from class when they got off work. So the navigator helped them figure out anywhere in the state They could highlight their commute pattern and say, here are the programs that I want to look at. Or they could type in on the site and say CNA, and it would show them the locations where it's offered. That changed enrollment completely. Why? Because Iowa transitioned from Department of Ed to Workforce Development. Indiana's been workforce development since 2011, one of the first states that left Department of Ed and joined workforce development. It's predictable from our current administration. The indicators are that the funding is coming through Department of Labor next, 2027. It's likely all of your states will fall under Department of Workforce Development or Labor. The idea of it being ed, it's gone. Why? Because of workforce demand. That's always been our goal, to educate them for life, for workforce, right? To retrain them, to give them the skills they needed to survive and to thrive. So we're helping you do that, to align class schedules, cohort launches with actual workforce entry points. That's why I say, like, knowing your employers, it is the success story of your program. Bringing the data and the story to them, that's your job now. You've got to do it. They're not going to come to you until you invite them. When you invite them, they're going to show up. They're going to see what you do. They're going to be blown away, because I promise you, many of them have no idea. They don't know that adult ed is even there. Amy, our colleague, Amy, one of our co-founders, she was presenting at a leadership academy just before the conference in Mooresville, just south of the Indianapolis airport, to their leadership academy. And she got the survey results back yesterday. One, congratulations, she got all 5s out of 5s on her survey. So we were really proud of her. But more than that, on the comments that people said was, I had no idea what adult ed was. I didn't know you did career training. I didn't know you had employer roundtables. I didn't know that it was free. I didn't know there were sponsorship opportunities. I didn't know that you're, a nonprofit, that our business could donate to your students. Those were the things that the stories don't tell. You've got to open the doors. That data then can share with them. Here's how many employers are using our program. Here's how many students are ready for a new job. Employers are still struggling for qualified talent. So we want to connect with them. So we've got to analyze the demand. We have to pull the labor market and the enrollment data simultaneously and make them match. We need to talk to our students about what the workforce or employment data is telling us. Here's the labor market and here are the programs. Notice they match. Notice when we're hiring over here that we're offering classes right here. We are preparing you for it. Students would come in all the time and they'd tell me, I want to be a nurse. And, oh, I hate blood, spit, puke, all those things. Okay. Let's give you a career assessment. Let's really think through this, right? I had a 68-year-old woman come in and say, I want to be a CNA. And I said, you said you needed what, ma'am? She said, no, I want to be a CNA. I was like, okay. Lifting patients day after day, consistently. Is that something you're going to be able to do? I could tell just physically she wasn't in a position to do that now, let alone 5 or 10 years ago. But the medical field seemed interesting. She seemed caring. So we talked to her about front office medical assistant, about bookkeeping. That's the direction she went. And she still works at Franciscan Hospital here in Indianapolis. She's been there for 5 years. I bet she's got another 5 in her. She's a go-getter. It happens all the time, but you've got to know the workforce data, understand the demand, schedule it strategically, and launch the cohort together. Make sure they're interconnected. Tell the students about the other students, other people just like you are doing it. You may not be over here, but you're going to fit perfect over here. People would walk in sometimes and they had a beautiful smile, and I thought they'll be in a dental program, perfect for them. Other people look like they needed a dental program. Let's connect them. Let's connect them though, right? Hey, we have students training to be dental assistants and technicians. Would you be interested in working with them? They need people to practice on. Same with phlebotomy. Some people are really afraid of needles. It was hard to get people to come in and try it. But when a student was like proud that they donated blood at our blood drive, and we hosted the biggest blood drive in central Indiana, we would try to recruit all those people donating blood to help our students out. They need practice. So think creatively through this. Use the data to help you make informed decisions. And you want a system that tracks and teaches that growth. You want to connect these dots. So staff, they should be able to kind of shore up the cracks to create that safety net using the information that you have. So professional development modules, whether they're automatic or manual, things that you're helping the staff improve their skill set, talk about their challenges, and then respond to them shouldn't be any different than what you do for your students. You want, to track the credentials, the completions, the milestones that they have, creating for every employee a personalized pathway. When I would have a new employee start, I would have them write and create a vision board. We had all kinds of magazines and things and a poster board for them. And I'd say, tell me what your future looks like. What do you want to get out of this experience working here? And people would cut out homes or cars and things like that and post it on there. Other people would have beautiful scenery of parks or a place that they've always wanted to go, or just a picture of their grandkids. And it was like, that's why they were there. You want to understand that personalized path for your team. What makes them show up? What helps them feel like they're making progress toward their own goals? Because burnout is heavy in our industry. It's real and it's hard and it can wear on them. And I'm sure you all know our pay is really high, so it makes it worth it. But the reality is that personal pathway, that investment that you make with them, it's data collection. And you can use AI to help you understand, here's why the person's motivated. Here's our current situation. It's another year of no pay raises. What am I going to do? How am I going to keep them appreciated and motivated? What professional development opportunities can I provide them that helps them see we're getting closer to their goal, even if it's not tangible, even if it doesn't feel real? It gives you that bird's eye view then of the team readiness, where they're at. So we've got to track it. We have to identify it, assign it, and grow it. We've got to celebrate the progress. We want to award certificates and things like that. We want to draw attention to the fact that they're succeeding, that their goals are closer, and creating those tools that identify when learners are disengaging. Do you recognize when an employee is disengaging? Sometimes it's easy to tell. But we've got to look at it. We've got to see it. We're with them every day. Our students, we may see them once a week. It may be more difficult to see when somebody's disengaging. So we can provide and combine this predictive analytics, personalize that outreach to the adult learners to keep them on track, to help keep them motivated and supported. It takes achieving small goals often. It's celebrating every success. We give them a certificate when they attend orientation. We celebrate it. When they get a measurable skill gain, we celebrate it. When they get their driver's license, we celebrate it. When they show up to class, we celebrate it. Everything's an exciting party every single day. When you surround yourself with that, optimism is so easy. Every day's a success. You got out of bed today. That's a success. That's a success, especially the last day of the conference. You made it to an 8 a.m. session on the 3rd floor. Give yourselves a round of applause, right? That's an accomplishment. So we have to celebrate it, right? So we use AI to assist us do that, to creating messages that reaches the students, to encourage them to meet their goals, but you can do it for yourself too. There are times where you can just hit up ChatGPT and say, bad day, encourage me, or tell me a joke, or get me out of this mood. Give me more energy. Help me meditate. It can do it. It's weird, but it can do it. We were talking yesterday to some people just about, it makes a great therapist, somebody that you can just unload to. And the best part is you don't have to worry when you tell them all the real stuff. They're not going to commit you and make you stay. So it's beautiful, right? So you can do this with your curriculum too. I think students need it. So we've designed a system to encourage students to do that. You have some options. You can build your own curriculum, designing custom courses that are really specific to your community's needs. But that does require you to know your community, to know not to put in a Yale forklift simulator when Crown is literally 4 doors down. You've got to know that local context and communicate to them. You have to know, okay, what's the best pizza around? You know, originally, my family, we're from New York, so I know that it's the superior pizza, but now living closer to Chicago, people will argue with me. And it's weird because I just know that they're dumb, but I try to educate them and they don't seem open. Some of you are trying to educate people that don't seem open because it's from your view. It's not from their view. It's not from their neighborhood. It's not from where they're coming from and the societal issues that they've encountered, the trauma they faced. You've got to do it from their local context. And of course, you're welcome to deploy our curriculum. We have over 20 career technical ed programs and adult education curricula. It's fully developed, vetted, and ready to teach. But beyond that, it's super responsive. You want to be able to respond, whether it's healthcare or technology, skilled trade, manufacturing. Because what's important is like when we see that somebody's missing reading on HiSET by 2 points, we're figuring out what is it that we can adjust in our curriculum, not tomorrow, but now to improve it. Our team's doing this all the time. It wasn't too long ago, we found out through a press conference at 7 o'clock on a Thursday that the federal government was now requiring that professional drivers prove English language proficiency. And we launched the course at 8 a.m. for CDL to have English proficiency. You have to be as responsive in your programs. Some of you have been teaching the same curriculum for years with very minor adjustments. It changes almost day to day for every single student. It's not a one size fits all. So it needs to adjust based on where we're at in the program. So home health aid is an example of the healthcare side. The textbooks need to update in real time, flexible with the student and the questions that they're answering and learning and lessons and how they're performing throughout the modules. Do we need to slow them down and provide more information or speed them up because they get it? If they're ready for HiSET, they may be in 201 because on their CASAS exam or their TABE 13-14, they did really well already. So they're just ready to prove and practice and take the, practice tests. Then go take the real thing. Other students, we're going to spend 6 weeks working on fractions and decimals, getting them right. It has to adjust. Cybersecurity, preparing for CompTIA exams, things like that. Sometimes before they jump into the actual test prep, they need to lay a foundation first. So again, having that flexible, responsive curriculum, you can adjust it, you can customize it, but you've got to make sure that you're including the employers in it. Employers are sitting down with us and sometimes authoring their curriculum. Because of that, you need to make sure that you're engaging the people that are actually doing the job. That was always one of my frustrations with curriculum was I always felt like, oh yeah, this person knows a lot about what they read in another textbook and nothing about the job. And that was frustrating. So engage the employers. AI adoption without ethical guardrails is next. And we're kind of nearing the end here. They can widen achievement gaps rather than close them. So you've got to be really careful with its use. You want to make sure that you are leading by asking the hard questions and you need to ask the hard questions. So who benefits and who might be left out by implementing new technology or a new tool? Somebody's going to be left out. Who is it? Is it your program? Is it the employer? Is it the student? We hope the answer is no to all three of those. We hope who's left out are the ones that aren't really benefiting, aren't really helping. So analyze it. Is student data protected and is it FERPA compliant? I can't tell you how many programs are still using things like Salesforce and Google Voice to contact students. There's no record of that. Students have a right to their academic records. It needs to fall into compliance. The same with AI. When I was down in Florida, actually, Florida approves the use of Copilot, for example, for their programs. And I was at Dade County schools doing a training, and I was telling them how insecure it is to use those spreadsheets on their network. And they were trying to convince me otherwise. So on my laptop, a stranger's computer as a guest on their network, I went ahead and pulled up all of their academic records and their payroll records, just to show them what it was like with Copilot. You want it to be secure, and you got to make sure that your program is falling into that compliance. You want to ask, can staff explain those AI-driven decisions? If the data is saying this, is it narrating it? Are you able to tell the story? So that's where you can upload the data to ChatGPT and say, help me write this into a narrative. I want to tell the story of what the data is saying. We may understand the numbers, but we're internal. The community doesn't. The employers don't. Tell the story, not just let the numbers speak for themselves. The diverse learner populations, are they fairly represented? Are you guiding them toward English language proficiency? Do they see themselves in the curriculum? Or are they being left out? That's what we're looking at. So some real world cases, this is where that theory meets practice here at the end. Just predicting enrollment gaps. We had a regional adult ed director use it to forecast reports. They identified a projected 20% enrollment dip. We saw where it was coming from. It's because a program was no longer funded. So we had to create another program, a new one. So we launched a targeted recruitment practice into other programs that were existing because one was going away. It no longer had the funding. Credential completion, the deployment for the healthcare, home health aide, CNA, cut time for the credential by 30%. A lot of those people already knew a lot of the information. So we did the assessment and figured out, wow, they must have raised kids or something because they knew what some of this terminology meant. So why spend 3 weeks on medical terminology that the student already knew? So we could cut the time down. And then that professional development gap, that's where the tracking comes in. This is just an example of like making it visible. If they have a certification, if they have a licensure, a lot of times that waives the professional development requirement. And in some programs, they have no professional development requirement at all. They just kind of fly by the seat of their pants. So you can set how many hours do you want your participants to get? Is it 12 like our students before they get a game? Is it 4? What does it look like? And then create the actual plans, set the goals, let them see action items, give them resources all in one place, as well as their evaluations for the classroom, and let it be visible to them. Let them see, here's my plan. This is my recent evaluation. That way they can see for themselves the improvement and take part in it. So what about your program? This is that closing thought. We want you to think, have you used AI to make informed decisions or to enhance your success for your program, your curriculum, your communication? Because those are all possibilities. With the right tools, with the right education, you're a lifelong learner. So all of this can be learned. How to prompt, things like that. Take a prompting course. It's going to help you. So lead your program. Be ready. It's coming. It's already here. It's in the future. You're welcome to schedule a walkthrough with us or stop by the booth if you want. The future of the program, it doesn't have to be uncertain. Literally, with those tools and the right framework, you will be already ahead of the game. It just takes putting it into practice, getting coaching, and having the conversations. So, of course, you can connect with us, but you can also just start one conversation. So this is my challenge with you today, is connect with us or start one conversation where you identify an employer in your region's growth sector and schedule a curriculum feedback meeting this month. reach out to them and say, hey, I have some questions for you. I'm training students in your field, and I want you to take a look at our curriculum and tell me what insight you can provide. Things that I can customize to make sure that they have the skills that you need to be hired. And audit a program. Choose one course and map it against the current labor market. See if you're where you should be and identify the gaps that you can close right now. And you can use AI to do that. Upload the data and ask it to identify gaps. You don't have to be extremely creative to make that happen. So I'd love to connect with you. I appreciate you all being here today. If you have questions, I'll stick around. Same with those that are on Zoom. We'll be happy to see you and answer your questions through the Whova app. And again, I'll post that link in the Whova app for the mindsets that you're welcome to share with your program and access on the computer. I also have some of my business cards up here, or a little bit more about Connectable if you want either of those items. Thanks for being here at 8 and being here at the last day of the conference. I know a lot of people check out early as well, but good to see you all. And I'll stick around if you have questions.